Patricia Patterson taught the fifth grade for her entire teaching career. Chances are, if you grew up in Monticello, Florida, Mrs. Patterson was your fifth grade teacher. That means about 3 generations were influenced by this sage of a teacher. Now, Mrs. Patterson was not the typical submissive young woman of back in the late 60s and early 70s, but she was by no means a woman's lib type. Her agenda was to be the best fifth grade teacher that she could be. And she was. Her nickname Stonewall was earned. Everyone feared and respected her and revered her. What you did the first through fourth grades is basically feared Mrs. Patterson in the fifth grade, and when you got through with the fifth grade, you kind of went, whew, you made it. You knew then you could tackle the 6th through 12th grade. Well, when I was in the fifth grade, I was fixated on football. A fixation that continues to this day in the opinion of many. Unfortunately, this fixation at the time was somewhat of a distraction to my academic study. And one day it came time for recess. Now, for those of you not old enough to know, this was a time of outdoor play that was during the day. We had recess. But Mrs. Patterson kind of intercepted me on the way out, and she challenged me and said, you talk big about knowing a lot about the NFL. I kind of doubt you could even write all the names of the teams and the cities they're from and the mascots of the NFL teams. So, during recess, that's exactly what I did. I wrote them all, got them, aced it. And I showed her. Well, after recess was over and the class came back in, I fully expected my work on the chalkboard to be erased and for normal classes to resume. But Mrs. Patterson had a different idea. She called me up to the front of the class, and she asked me to look at the list, and we pointed out the San Francisco 49ers. And she asked me, she said, do you actually know where San Francisco is? I said, well, of course, it's in California. She said, there's a map over there. Please point to it in California. Well, I didn't exactly know where San Francisco was, but I was able to find it without too much trouble. And she says, the 49ers, what is a 49er? Don't know. Well, what she did then, she began sprinkling in a few facts. She says, do you remember we studied about the California gold rush? Yeah. She said, do you remember when that was? No, not really. Where did everybody go? Well, California. She said San Francisco specifically. The year was 1849. That's why they call them the 49ers. Oh, okay. Then we went down the list a little bit and we got to Philadelphia. She said, Philadelphia Eagles. Why Eagles? I said, why not? I said, there's the Atlanta Falcons and there's the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, for those of you not old enough to know, what is now the Arizona Cardinals was then the St. Louis Cardinals. That's where it's supposed to be. And so she asked me, she said, what is the national bird? Well, we all know that the bald eagle is the national bird, don't we? And she said, when was that decided? I said, heck, I don't know. She said, where was it decided? I don't know. She said, do you remember the Constitutional Convention that we've talked about in our history class? I said, yeah. I went ahead and said, yes, I didn't really. But she says, well, the Constitutional Convention was held in Philadelphia. And among other important work that was done there, they decided the national bird, the bald eagle. Now, by the way, Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be our national bird. Well, basically, that entire class that day consisted of me talking about the iconic cities that were hosts to the teams of the National Football Leagues and their mascots. It was a geography lesson and a history lesson all rolled into one. And heck, I was teaching it. Miss Patterson was just at the back of the class. Remember the teacher's lounge? Back then, what that was basically a place to have for the teachers to go to have a cigarette. And they had a break during their day that they would go do that. But you know what? Miss Patterson could go any time she wanted to. Why is that? Well, what she would do is give the class an assignment, and then she would go to the teacher's lounge and take a smoke break. Believe it or not, that class would remain quiet and studious, even in her absence. That's discipline, folks. You know, Mrs. Patterson was a great teacher and a great disciplinarian. Now, I'm sure most of us can remember an outstanding teacher in our past. And there's one historical great teacher that many people acknowledge is Jesus Christ. I'm amazed at even people that do not recognize that Jesus is the Messiah will still acknowledge that he was a great teacher. And even the scriptures bear witness to people referring to him as rabbi. So we can agree that at the very least, Jesus was a good teacher. Now, how about disciplinarian? I guess the scene of Jesus cracking the whip and turning over the tables in the temple courtyard comes to mind, but actually that's punishment, not discipline. We use those words synonymously, but they are very different. If you will refer to the text blog, the address is at the top of the screen. In there is a link to a blog I did on discipline versus punishment. The two words are very different. Well, discipline comes from the root word disciple. Discipline and disciple share the same root word. And we are all commanded to make disciples. So, we're commissioned as missionaries. Well, the only question is then, how good of a job are we doing at it? Now, you may not think of yourself as a teacher, but as a Christian, each one of us, in fact, are teachers. I hope I can take my job as teacher as seriously and be effective for the kingdom of God as Mrs. Patterson was for her 3 generations of 5th grade students. Well, those are my thoughts today. What are your thoughts? I'd like to know. Would you mind sharing them? There's a space provided for comments on this page, and I sincerely hope that you will share them. I read them, and I get inspired by what you think. Let's connect on Twitter. I'm at Data Genesis. It's on the screen right below my chin. And if you would like to subscribe to the text version of this video, I write a text blog that serves as the talking point notes to make these videos. And I don't do this alone. I'm part of a team of Christian brothers and sisters. We use our blogs as talking point notes to make these videos for several reasons. One is we hope that they will inspire you. We also hope that you'll find them uplifting and informative, but most of all, empowering. If you'd like to check out some of the other videos, I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel.